Welcome to the Tattooed Truth Podcast with Anna Love, a space for embodied conversations for soul-led rebels. I'm your host, Anna Love, intuitive empowerment coach, subconscious healing guide, and no stranger to burning it all down to rise in truth. Here we dive deep into identity, healing, personal power, and what it really takes to lead a soul-aligned life. You'll hear unfiltered insights, real stories, and live coaching sessions with bold callers ready to break free and embody their next level. This is your invitation to reclaim your voice, rewire your patterns, and rise fully expressed. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Tattooed Truth Podcast. I am so excited to talk about today. Your past does not define your future. So, your past may explain who you are, but it does not get to decide who you become next. Today, we're unraveling one of the biggest myths women carry, and that is who we've been is who we must remain. And I'd like to ask you, where does this come from? I know for me, it came from my family. And people would say things like, don't forget where you came from. Don't forget your roots. Don't forget, about you. And what I have to say to that is it actually stifled my growth because I was worried that I was going to disappoint people in my family if I changed. And if you've been following me, you'll know that part of my journey is the unraveling of Anna, right? Who I used to be in order to fit in and to get along and to get attention and to get connection is not and was not my true authentic self. And so I was living versions of me that were absolutely authentic, but then versions of me who were hiding. And it took me a very long time, decades, in fact, to start to unravel that living in that inauthentic way where you're yourself with these people, but not yourself with these people. That feels really bad inside your body, and it creates dis-ease in your body. It creates a lack of integrity in your actions and in your choices. And a lot of this can be stemmed back to this idea that who you are as a child or as a young adult has to be the woman that you're going to be all the way up until the day that you pass. And that's just simply not true. So I'm here to break that myth and let's talk about it. Let's dive into the illusion of identity because everything always comes back to identity. And I say that because I don't like saying the word always unless it's actually true. Everything always comes back to identity. What do you identify as? Who do you identify with? Because whatever that is at the root, that's who we are going to be out in the world. That's how we are going to make our choices, the friends that we keep, the job that we have, the motivation or lack of motivation or discipline or lack of discipline, all that's going to come and stem from your identity. So let's take a look at what this all means. So when women unconsciously stay loyal, okay, and that's a very big point I'm making here, is the unconscious choice, because we don't know that we're doing it until we become aware of it. But until we don't, if we're just walking around sleepwalking, we are staying loyal to outdated versions of ourselves because we feel like if we change, we're going to disappoint somebody, maybe our mom, maybe our dad, maybe if we outgrow the old us and we outgrow our friends, there's could be feelings of guilt or shame around that. Or if we want to go branch off and be bigger and better and live in maybe we want to live really big and we want to have a big impact on the world and be really wealthy. And if that is different than our family dynamics, there's going to be some resistance to that on an unconscious level because we don't want to shame our parents. We don't want to hurt our parents. We don't want to insinuate that what they gave us wasn't enough. And sometimes that's very true to everyone involved. And other times it's just made up in our head. It's an illusion. So it's important that we start taking a look at, is it an illusion that you're living with? Or is there someone literally telling you don't change? Because if you change, it means that you think you're better than people, right? My family would always say, oh, they think their shit doesn't stink. No, everyone's shit stinks, by the way. And just because you make money or you want to go off and do good things or you have nice things doesn't mean that you think that. We all realize we're still a, human form having this experience here. But what the problem is, and what it always comes down to, there's my word always again, and it always comes down to the nervous system. All right. And when your nervous system clings to familiarity, which it's going to do, even when it hurts or even when it sucks or even when it's not conducive to us moving forward and creating a new path, our nervous system is going to try to keep us small. It's going to try to keep us complacent and doing the same things. Why? Because that's where it feels safe. And our brain also chooses the path of least resistance, and that's going to be the familiar path. And I like to tell my clients when I'm working with them, picture a piece of wood with a groove in it. And that groove is so ingrained in that wood that if you were to pour water over it, where is that water going to go? Obviously inside the groove part. And when that is a habit that works for us and is conducive to us being the best version of ourselves, that's fantastic. But when it's not, then that groove needs to be, competed with. We need to create another groove or another groove, and we need to keep ingraining that pattern and that habit until it's bigger than the first one. All right. And then all of a sudden, what was familiar becomes unfamiliar, and the new way of being becomes familiar. Right. And now it's all of a sudden comfortable, and we feel a little bit more normal, and our nervous system can relax because it's normalized, the new way of being. But it takes us to notice the ways that we're being and to notice how we are clinging to an old identity, one that doesn't serve us any longer. Who we were at 10 does not mean that that is literally all versions of us at 40 or 30 or even 20. Okay. And I talk to women in their 20s in college who are struggling with this. It starts very young when they get to a place and a point in their life when they start realizing, I can't even feel who I truly am at the core. Why? Because I've been living life according to what other people want, an identity that served me to get through my life, maybe in grade school, maybe in middle school, maybe in high school, but in college, things aren't the same. All right. The struggle is different. You're in a different pool of let's call it competition. You're in a different pool of people who are ranked just as high, if not higher than you in terms of grades and accomplishments. And when we're in that environment, but we're working with an old identity, guess what? It doesn't work. Okay. So it's important to get to your truth, to get to yourself. And I like to refer to this as a honeypot because it just came to me one day in a visualization. But inside that honeypot is all of the good. All right. It's all of the sticky sweetness. It's all of the juicy, what makes us us. And inside of that honeypot is the essence of us. And it's where we go for our source to reconnect with who we are, our intuition, our confidence, our courage, our clarity, right? Our compassion for ourselves when we make mistakes or when we shift and when we want to change and other people are telling us are wrong. All of that is there and available for us to access at any point. But if we don't know it's there, we don't know how to access it, or there's too many layers and we can't figure out how to get through the layers, then what do? We go to the path of least resistance and we keep living that identity that no longer serves us, but we don't know what else to fucking do. Okay. So this is a big deal. It's a big deal for me. It's a big deal for the people that I work with. And that tells me that it's a big deal for many of us in this world and even listening to this podcast. So if this resonates, please give a shout out to me. Come find me and we're not done with this. I'm just giving a shout out to myself on my Instagram. Come find me and tell me that this resonates with you. I am at iam.theannalove on Instagram, and I'd love to hear from you. So let's talk about when the old you stops fitting in. And we just talked about that for a little bit, but there was a moment for me that I'd like to share. I mean, I had so many moments where it was blatantly obvious I wasn't fitting into the world that I was living in, but a lot of it stems from just gonna laugh at myself because when I think back to I'm all tatted up right now, which is to me, it's a way of creating who I truly am on the inside, but on the outside. It's a way of self-expression. It's a way of not so much as look at me, look at me. And if you talk to Tony Robbins, he'll fucking say that. And that's the one thing I disagree with him on. I'm not doing it for look at me, look at me. In fact, I don't even think about it when I'm walking down the street. It's just a part of my identity because it's one of those invisible coloring books. Have you guys ever used one of those when you were a kid? And I used to love getting these things at the convenience store. And it was like this coloring book, and I'd literally do it in like 10 minutes. By the time we got home, the book was done. And you had like this orange marker with a white tip, but it didn't have any ink in it. It was just like this, whatever it had in it, it like, brought the picture to life. And that's what it felt like every time I'd get a tattoo. And even now, even I'm still getting tattoos. Every time I got a tattoo, it would feel like, oh, there I am. There's the real Anna. Like that's me because it was a reflection. It could be just a beautiful design, right? Or it could be a word, or it could be, something that is meaningful. But a lot of what I have are just beautiful, reflections of my inner being. And there was a time when that wasn't available to me, to access that wasn't available to me. And I looked a certain way and I had a certain haircut and I wore certain clothes. And I did that to fit into the scene of which I lived in my 30s. And then when I began to really peel back the layers and uncover, like, oh, well, who is Anna at her core? Because I know she's in there. I used to say to myself, I know I'm in there. I just don't know how to get there. Right? I had no idea. I had no roadmap. All I had was an inclination of I wasn't there. I wasn't living my truth. And so I started to get the tattoos, and certain people would say, oh, she's having a nervous breakdown, which I guess I was, right? Like, I guess I was, because that's what an identity shift is. I've been living an identity, and then now I'm shifting. And here's the thing though, it wasn't a crisis. It wasn't a breakdown. Okay. It was, if you look up the definition of nervous breakdown, you're going to find like the words identity, and they don't know who they are and who they're being. And oh my God, who am I going to go be now? And that's why you see a lot of people out there like abandoning their families and running off with a girlfriend, or, getting a Corvette, like, or buying like some beautiful expensive car, or just like jumping ship from this like role that they've been playing. Okay. And so the object is to not get to that point, right, in life. Like, why do we have to burn it all down just to rise up to meet who we truly are? I don't believe in that. And I sort of did that. I got a divorce, and that's somewhat burning it all down, right? But if I had known these tools and this information 25 years ago, I wouldn't probably have gotten the divorce. But that's neither here nor there. And I don't know what I don't know. I'm just pointing out, right? Maybe things would have been different. My perspective would have been different. And if I were able to be me, and then here's another thought, maybe I would have gotten a divorce because maybe that person who was married to me didn't like tattoos. And that was actually something that was said, right? So maybe the divorce would have happened anyway. Who knows? It doesn't matter. 25 years ago or 10 years ago, 15 years ago, all that is in the past. So thinking about the past and living in versions of us being in the past and who we were in the past is no longer effective. And I'm here to mark it on the wall that we are done with that shit. Okay. So how do we break all of these patterns? Well, you start by feeling inside your body. You start with doing somatic work and getting in touch with the feelings that we typically ignore that then turn into pains. And we go to the doctor and say, help me with my pain. No, trace it back. It's linked to probably a version of you that you're living that no longer fits, right? Like old shoes. Have you guys this happened to me when I got pregnant. I was a size 7. And then after the pregnancy, I was a 7.5. Okay. I outgrew a lot of my shoes because I was stuffing my feet into 6.5s because I was a 6.5, 7. And then after that, I was never going to fit another 6.5, but I like never wanted to get rid of these gorgeous shoes. So there was a part of me that was like, oh, I'm still a 6.5, 7 when I wasn't. I was a 7, 7.5. Okay. So I shifted, I changed. Who knows why? I'm not a doctor. I don't know why my foot size changed. Okay. But it did. And I've heard that other women have this. And we outgrow things. And no one needs to explain why we outgrow it. We outgrow it because we outgrow it. That's what's interesting. We don't need to make meaning over it. We just need to acknowledge and accept and internalize what's true at the current moment in the present time and not dwell in the past. Well, I used to be a 6.5. I like smaller feet, right? No, don't identify with someone who likes smaller feet or has smaller feet, right? So part of it is like feeling inside your body, what are you storing in there? And then linking it back and traveling back to like, what do I believe about this? What beliefs are around there? Hanging out in my body, my mind, and my consciousness and my subconsciousness. And before anything becomes a belief, you've probably heard me say it actually had to have been a decision. So at what point did I decide this XYZ? And we heal that, we change that, we shift that, we reverse it, we pull out the root that no longer works and no longer identifies with us, and we put something else in. We reprogram. We shift the trajectory of our life right then and there. And yes, it can be that fast. So I'd like to point out that there has to be a turning point. There has to be a line drawn in the sand, a stake put down saying, enough's a fucking enough. We're done here. And the exact moment a woman decides to stop arguing and defending, right, for herself and her limitations, whatever she feels limited by inside of that old identity, be done with it. Put it in the past. It's over with. Moving forward, what do you want instead? What is possible here? So you have to decide, this is the day, right? I'm going to start now. And then we get to reframe your past as evidence of resilience, okay? As evidence of this is what I've gone through, this is what I've endured, this is what I've lived up until this point. It is not a limitation. It was presented to me so that I can grow stronger, be more me, and come into myself to the fullest. And I love that. So a lot of us consider our lives survival. Not everyone, right? So I was very careful when I said that. Not everyone had a life where they were surviving. A lot of kids that I know that turned into adults were like, I was thriving. I had great parents. I got all the attention. We had all the things. So that's not a life of survival. But there are a lot of people who felt like they were in survival, whether it was they didn't have a steady footing, they didn't have consistency in home life, they didn't have consistency in food, in shelter, in love. And, and by the way, I had all of that. I had food on the table and a roof over my head, and I still was in survival mode because of other things that were at play. So if there are other things that are at play, do not allow that to limit you. Do not allow that to label you. Do not identify with that. Just because you went through it doesn't mean that you are that. All right. So everything that you've survived or gone through or lived becomes part of your wisdom, not your identity. So let's get that very clear. So unless you're driving, go ahead and close your eyes, and I want you to feel into the woman that you are becoming and noticing, what does she no longer carry? What does she believe about herself that she's stepping into? A new way of being, a new belief. What are the characteristics? What are the traits? What does it feel like to be this new version of her? And then once that's fully in your body, and take your time with this. I'm just throwing out questions quickly here, but I want you to take your time with this. Feeling into the woman that you are becoming. What does she no longer carry? What is she releasing? And what does she believe about herself? And then once all of that's locked in, what does she choose next? Because our actions are based on our feelings in our body, and our feelings are based off of our beliefs. Yeah, and our thoughts and our decisions. So, honoring who you've been, of course, releasing what no longer serves, and rising into who you're becoming. So, I invite you to reach out to me again at iam.theannalove and let me know a moment when you broke a past pattern. Until next time, take care. Thanks for tuning in to the Tattooed Truth podcast. If this episode lit something up in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, leave a review, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a truth bomb. If you're craving deeper support, guided healing, or a space to reclaim your voice and power, check the show notes for ways to work with me. Remember, your truth is not too loud, too bold, or too much. It's exactly what this world needs. Keep showing up, stay wild, stay true. I'll see you next time.